Get ready for news and views from Lubbock, Texas, USA. What's going on and real talk with people who move and do things. This is the Focus LBK Show with your host, Robert Jenkins.
Hey, what's good, LBK? This is Robert Jenkins coming to you with Season 3, Episode 139 of the Focus LBK Show. It's been a rip-roaring week. Seems like I've been ridiculously busy, staying late at work, making videos and photos here and there and everywhere. And man, I have not had a time to really sit down and think about things the way I want to. And today's show, I got a few things I want to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is, do you get the feeling that we're just being played and pushed into war? It kills me how Donald Trump, for 10 years, has been talking about not going to war. And then he gets in this time around and takes us directly into all kind of silly wars of choice. But, you know, people always say, well, there's a method to the madness. He's playing 3D chess. I don't think he's playing chess at all. I'm not sure what he's doing, but I do have to confess that I might see a little bit of method to his madness. And I'll just tell you straight up, it looks to me like Trump is getting us ready for war. He's putting the country on a war footing. And yet, I mean, I know we're already in these little penny ante wars with Iran, these little spats. They don't seem to be real wars. Of course, I'm not over there, so I don't know what is actually happening on the ground in the Strait of Hormuz and all that. One really can't say unless you actually. This is the state of the world today. Is if you don't see something yourself with your own eyes, then you actually don't know what's going on. Because I think everybody by now understands that the news is full of nonsense, to put it politely. I think everybody understands by now that you just really can't trust either political party. I've felt that way for many years. That's why I tell you, I'm a conservative libertarian. I'm not a left or right. I'm a libertarian, meaning to me, liberty is the biggest thing. I think Thomas Jefferson once said that war, I'm talking about liberty is important to me. Thomas Jefferson once said that war is the seed of all evil, because through war, politicians get more power, the president gets more power, all money is spent, debt is incurred, which makes us have inflation. He just went down the line talking about how war gives birth to all evils, all of the evils. You have a standing army, which is always invariably used to oppress the citizens of the country where the army is raised. Historically, that's always been true. We're just waiting for it to happen in this country. War is the seed of all evil, old Thomas Jefferson said. And this is why I used to like the fact that Trump said he would not get us into any new wars, and he was trying to stop the current wars. Well, now Trump appears to be possessed by, I don't know, the state of Israel or something. A lot of people say it's Benjamin Netanyahu. I ain't talking about the Jewish people. I'm talking about the government of the state of Israel. That's two different things. They seem to be possessing him. You know what? Let's put this into context, this current war that we're in. That's what we need to do. Because some people that don't know better, and whose memory doesn't stretch back far enough, or who weren't in a position to hear these things years ago, don't realize that it was foretold, so to speak, that we would eventually go to war with Iran. Now, we have absolutely no reason to go to war with Iran that I can see. But back years ago, when we first went into Iraq, General Wesley Clark, who, if my memory serves correctly, was he was like the commanding general of NATO or something like that at the time. He was American, but he was over all the forces in U.S. forces in Europe or over NATO or something like that. I forget what his exact position was. This is back in 2003, 4, 5. But he came out and said, man, you know what? Not only he kind of spilled the tea a little bit. And when I say spilled the tea, he was authorized to let us know, because you don't just come out when you're a general, head of NATO or whatever he was. You don't just come out and say stuff like this on your own. You come out and say stuff when you're authorized to say it. He said, you know what? It's worse than just going to war with Iraq. He said, yeah, I heard that they trying to take us into war with Iraq. This is back in 2000, 2001 and 2, I think, before we actually started the war in Iraq. He was like, yeah, they trying to take us to war in Iraq. And he said, but it's worse than that. He said, I'm hearing they want to do 7 countries in 7 years. And he said they want to take us to war with Iraq, Syria, and he just went down the list. And he ended and he said they want to finish up with Iran. He named 7 countries: Iraq, Syria, something, Libya, a couple of more, and then Iran. And here we are, 20-something years later. It took them a while, but they still got around to going to war with Iran. And again, I'm putting this in context because General Wesley Clark told us they were going to do 7 countries in 7 years. The only thing that changed was the time frame was off. But at those 7 countries, we did, in fact, go to war with those 7 countries over a course of about 20 years in this case. And it culminated with Iran. So what I'm trying to tell you, folks, is this is why I always tell you, it seems like to me, Democrat and Republican, they on the same side. Why the Democrats ain't said nothing about stopping Trump from going to war? To the point where I don't even want to watch news no more. I don't even care because we seem to have no input on anything. You notice Trump didn't even bother to tell Congress or anybody else, hey, we need to go to war. He didn't even bother to lie to us. He didn't even bother to say, oh, they got weapons of mass destruction. That was a lie, and that was known at the time. When I was active duty military at the time, there was plenty of people on the planet that was saying that's a lie. This weapons of mass destruction stuff in Iraq, it was a known lie. The problem is the people that would go against the status quo, that would go against the president and all the ruling power structure, even though they were experts in the power structure themselves, they will not be allowed to go on TV and talk about this stuff. So you're not going to be allowed to go on TV and say, well, actually, those claims are false, and we know that because of A, B, and C. You don't get to talk on TV. Nowadays, they take your Twitter and your YouTube and all that. During COVID, how they did us. So what I'm saying is, I guess I'm going all around the barn, but what I'm saying is we have been led into another war, which if you look at my other Substack, moonmind.com, or Moonmind, Thoughts from My Moon Mind, I don't really keep up with it too much. I mentioned this a while back. I said, I think they're going to put Trump back in and he's going to set it, and they're setting us up to get into a big war. That's what I said. I wish I could. I hate to be on my electronics while I'm on the show, but I'm going to see, can I pull that up? Because I want to see if I can read y'all the exact quote. You know what I'm saying? Like the real quote. But I literally said in my other Substack, Thoughts from My Moon Mind, this was before when Trump, before he got shot at Butler, supposedly, allegedly got shot at Butler. I zoomed in on his ear. I didn't see no damage on his ear. I zoomed in and looked, and all I saw was a blood smear on his ear. I don't even think that was real. This is what I'm trying to tell you, folks. We don't know what's real anymore. If you are not there in person looking with your own 2 eyeballs, you don't know nothing. But anyway, the man didn't even bother to lie to us this time about going to war. He just took it to war. And where the Democrats at? They ain't said nothing about going to war. I haven't heard them say anything. They talking about redistricting and gerrymandering and stuff. Drawing red lines on the map and all that. Trying to draw racial-based lines on the map to get more votes for their party, which is, is the whole point of politics, to get votes so you can gain power and then do what you want to do and ignore everybody else that just put you in office. Trump did it. Obama. Just killing me, man. We don't get anything from these politicians. All we get is more debt, more inflation, more war, more nonsense, more people flooding our country that shouldn't be here. That's what we get. How does that benefit us in any way? How have the American people in any way, form, or fashion benefited from any president in living memory? No matter which party was in, we got higher prices, savings depleted. People are using their credit cards all you got to do is look at Amazon. You could pay via Klarna. You just want to see how the true state of the economy, which is how you measure what we have received from politicians. You know what we have received from politicians? We have received from politicians of both parties a society where you go on Amazon, you want to buy something for $45. It says pay using Klarna. Make it 4 equal payments of $14.95 or whatever the case was. What for some socks? You paying 40? You paying 4 equal payments for stuff that's $45, $100? That tells you something. The food we eat is garbage. You know why the food we eat is garbage? It's not even food. It's mostly chemicals because of inflation. You know where inflation comes from? Printing money to pay for stuff that for which there is no production, printing money to pay for stuff that politicians promise you, printing money to pay for programs for illegals, printing money to pay for wars of choice that we don't even get nothing out of. Every time you print money without an equal amount of production, real production, making stuff, people making things, and you just printing money without making stuff, you get inflation. That's what we get that's what we have gotten since I've been an adult. And I served in the military under presidents from Clinton up to Trump. I literally served under Clinton. Who was it? Clinton, Bush, Obama, Biden, Trump. Am I missing one? It don't matter if you're missing one. It ain't like their policies were any different. Those 7 wars that they said we was going to get into, that was stated under Bush, George Bush, W. Bush, and it came to fruition. Obama got in office. He took us to a couple of those wars, Syria, Libya, destroyed those countries. Those countries are in utter ruin to this day, especially Libya. Muammar Gaddafi. Not saying he was a good guy, but I know he had a plan to build a pan-African gold-based currency. And I noticed as soon as they killed him in the streets, overthrew his country and killed him in the streets, sodomized him with a broomstick from the videos that they supposedly showed us. Guess what the first thing they did after that was? Oh, they made a central bank. Forget about your pan-African gold-based currency. They made a central bank, which is designed to keep us in debt, which is designed to keep us living under a state of inflation. So all the presidents, since the first one I served under Clinton to now, have lied and taken us to war over nonsense, have paid Treasury, what did they say? Squandered our blood and our treasure. It's frankly, it's disgusting. And I'm to the point where I'm like, else, forget these fools. As a matter of fact, I'm to the point. I've been to the point. I've been to that point since about 2003, 4, 5, when we went to war with Iraq on fraudulent claims. And the mainstream media, including the Democrats, was cheering it on. I remember Phil Donahue. Some of y'all younger cats might not remember Phil Donahue. He was a huge talk show host in the 80s and 90s. He went away for a while and then came back. He had a show in 2000. And right about that time, he was going against the Iraq war on MSNBC. He had the most watched show, the most popular show on MSNBC. And he got sacked because he was talking against going to war in Iraq because he said it was based on lies and it was nonsense. So they canned their most popular show on MSNBC. He was the equivalent of like Rachel Maddow, but it was before she ever came along. He was the top guy on MSNBC. They canceled his whole show because he was saying, this sounds like they lying to us about this Iraq war. That was a left-leaning media organization that canceled their top guy for being anti-war. See what I'm saying? None of these guys have our best interest at heart. So I'm sitting here now, and like I said earlier at the top of the show, it looks to me like Trump is just getting us ready to go into a bigger war. And I give you a couple of points to back up what I'm saying. So I just saw an article the other day that said that Trump was working right now with Ford Motor Company to turn some of their production facilities into wartime production, to divert them to wartime production. Because we've been wasting all these missiles and all these other munitions and armaments. They're talking about having Ford start building tanks and trucks, military trucks and stuff again. That sounds ominous to me. That sounds like, again, they're getting ready for a larger war. When you see Trump go down to Venezuela and take out Maduro, when you see him over here messing with Cuba, what he's doing, it appears to me that what he's doing is kicking the Russians and Chinese out of our hemisphere. That sounds like a prelude to a larger war to me. That sounds like they're planning on getting us into World War III. That sounds like they plan for this thing to blow up. So you can't have potential enemies with footholds in your hemisphere. In some cases, like Cuba, 90 miles from our homeland. So when he's over there in Cuba right now, blockading them and the electricity going in and out, they just having a hard time, mainly because they socialists and communists, and that don't work. It's a worthless political ideology, a worthless economic ideology. It fails every time you try it in the real world because it goes against the nature of man. Man is greedy. We like money. Socialism says no matter how much skills you got, you don't get to make your own money. The government gets to tell you what to do, how to run your life, and how much you get paid, and what we need in society. Right? We don't need no doctors. We need janitors. That's what we need. That's what we need. 58 janitors this week. No. What if I want to be a doctor? It don't matter. You're going to get paid the same. That's true, by the way. I've had Cubans tell me that. I'm a Spanish linguist. Some of my instructors were Cubans. They hated communism. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but the point I'm making is Trump's actions look like he's preparing us to go to war for a larger war. So he's kicking out China and Russia, who have a heavy presence in Venezuela, military and economic support for Venezuela. Same thing in Cuba. Y'all remember the Bay of Pigs and all that, the nuclear standoff we had in this, what was that, the 70s, the 60s, under President Kennedy. Almost went to nuclear war then. So I think Trump it looks like he's cleansing the hemisphere, our Western hemisphere, the Donroe doctrine, they call it, kind of like the Monroe Doctrine. He's cleansing this hemisphere of potential adversaries. China and Russia specifically. He's kicking them out of Venezuela where they had a foothold, and kicking them out of communist Cuba where they had a foothold. So again, this is what I'm saying. That when you look at these things, those two or three things I'm just mentioning, the kicking the Chinese and the Russians out of this hemisphere, the Ford talking about manufacturing military equipment now, that sounds like he's putting us on a war footing. And I said on my other publication, as I mentioned, Thoughts from My Moon Mind, it looks like they're going to put Trump back in, which they did, and they're going to use him to usher us into a larger war, which they seem to be doing. So I ain't tooting my horn. In fact, it's a terrible thing that this is happening, because it means we have been betrayed once again by our leadership. And the Democrats, it seems like to me, like they don't even want to win. The stuff they talk about, no adult American in their right mind is concerned about those things at this point. People are trying to make a living, and they talking about stuff that's coming out of left field. You see exactly what they do when you look at their strongholds. Look at California and Minnesota. You see how they act. I talk bad about both sides. Now I'm just gonna talk bad about them because it's clear they don't have our interests at heart. And that's one of the things I like about Lubbock, is that we're a small little island out here on the plains. And honestly, we don't have no time to be dividing on the left or right, this false left-right paradigm they call it. We don't have no time for that, because all we got is each other out here on these dry, dusty, hot plains. You got to rely on your neighbors to survive. You got to rely on everybody in the city to pull their own weight and help each other as best they can, so we can all survive out here. They're talking about, here's another reason why I think things are just arranged, not even politically speaking, but they talking about these data centers, and we're talking about living out here in West Texas. We're out here in West Texas. We barely got water as it is, although I tend to believe the city manager when he says we have a 100-year water plan. Okay, that sounds good. And from what I've seen, it seems to be true. That's what I like about Lubbock. We have prudent leadership. You get a little bit of nonsense here and there, but it's tiny in comparison to the stuff you see in these bigger Democrat-run cities, leftist-controlled cities. But we're over here talking about water and surviving, and they're talking about building data centers that do what? Soak up water. They just suck water up. How you building data centers in Texas, and Texas has barely got water? Where is the environmentalist movement? They are not saying a thing. Tells you what you need to know about them, doesn't it? The people who was all against cow farts, talking about methane is a greenhouse gas and it's a pollutant, ain't got nothing to say about data centers. Ain't got nothing to say about starting nuclear energy back up, building mini nuclear reactors to power these data centers while they suck up all your water. They ain't said not word, not one word, not word the first. Who used to say that? They ain't said not word the first about none of this. Because that movement is controlled, just like politics is controlled. They're there to get you mad at each other and get you fighting your neighbor and mad at your family, can't even have Thanksgiving. That's what TV do. That's what the news is for. The news is to keep you misinformed and upset. I don't know, man. I'm really disillusioned with the way this administration is handling things. I was disgusted with the way the previous administration has handled stuff. I'm disgusted with both of them. They're both worthless. And they're both making life hard for regular people like me and you. Life is harder than it's ever been in my life right now. I'm looking around and I'm seeing people struggling. The gas is almost the highest it's ever been. $6 or something in California, I think I saw somewhere the other day. Man, please. This is, you know what I'm saying? But do we get the leadership that we deserve? We keep voting for it. How is it that we live in the birthplace of modern Western democracy? Of course, democracy started in Greece, back in Athens or whatever. But we are the birthplace of democracy in a modern sense. We the people that came along, the United States, and said all men are created equal, and then had to fight and figure it out how to make that be so. We're the ones that said every man gets a vote, even though they only meant white men and property owners at one point. Now everybody has the vote once you reach a certain age. I'm not even sure that's a good idea. You're letting people vote that don't have no stake in society and don't have no experience in life. I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. You voting at 18 because at 18 you don't even know you don't know your certain part of your anatomy from a hole in the ground. You know what I'm saying? I know I didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. But what I'm getting at is, how is it that we sit here in the modern cradle of democracy, and yet we only have two political parties? When they give you two or something, that should raise your eyebrow, because that's purposely designed so they can fight back and forth. You can't really do that with 3 or 4 or 5 parties. You start splintering the vote. Nobody has all the power they need. You can't keep the charade going up. It's just like, I was reading an article the other day, and a guy was making a great point about this very thing. He was talking about, you remember wrestling back when we was kids? When I was a kid, the wrestlers was Kerry Von Erich and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan them. Now, you always have a good guy and a bad guy. And in wrestling, the bad guy is called the heel. Heel, I think is what it's called. So you got the good guy and the heel. Kerry Von Erich was the good guy. Andre the Giant was a heel, or, junkyard dog. I don't know, whatever the case was. The bad guy, they wrestling. That's a perfect setup. You got 2 colors, the red team and the blue team, Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. I don't care what they say their name is. Their name is the Washington Redskins. You got Republican versus Democrat, blood versus Crip. Why is it always red and blue? Because those are diametrically opposed colors on the color wheel, maybe, huh? Well, I've just thought about that. This thought just occurred to me. But the point is, when you see those 2 opposing teams set up like that, that's designed so you can join one side and fight against the other side. And it's just constant conflict back and forth. The problem is, the people that rule over us get power out of that conflict. They get control of us out of that conflict. That's why they like us going back and forth. Y'all seen that meme, that old meme where the king and his advisor is standing up in the castle looking down, and it's a bunch of folks down there, an angry mob with torches and pitchforks. And the king's advisor looks at him and says, Your Excellency, I'm feeling a little bit worried, man. You got all these people down here with torches and pistols. Look at it, there's thousands of them. We can't control that. We about to die. And the king say, nah, be cool, man. Be cool, fool. All you got to do is tell the folks with the torches that the pitchfork people want to kill them. And tell the folks with the pitchforks that the torch people hate their guts. Yeah, because in other words, the torch people and the pitchfork people will be so busy fighting each other that the king's life and power will never be endangered. The same thing is true with this red and blue stuff, this liberal and conservative. And the funny thing to me is how I've been alive long enough to know and notice how at this point, what we call liberal and conservative have changed drastically. Today, what they call far right used to just be considered center, middle of the road when I was a kid. Far right, what is the far right? Well, the stuff they call far right is common sense stuff nowadays. The stuff the people on the left, the far left, talk about is alien nonsense. Like, what? There's no difference between men and women. You can just put on women's clothes and be a woman. Get out of here. Come on. There's nothing in nature that works that way. You know what I'm saying? If I put a voice box on my dog and it say meow, is he a cat? No. The point I'm making, I guess, I'm to the point where I'm getting sick and tired of getting played. And I wonder if everybody else is too. Here's another way they're trying to play us. Hantavirus. You notice that's another one of those pandemics that flopped and didn't take off, because if there's anybody out there that remembers, starting back in about 2003, they had SARS, they had SPARS, they had Zika, they had swine flu. There was 6 or 7 of those diseases that they tried to make like COVID. They wanted to have the same response that they got during COVID. But they failed because they didn't have the media fully invested. That's why they had a big tabletop exercise called Event 201. Look that up if you don't believe me or you want to know some interesting stuff, where they planned out how to do COVID. The tabletop exercise. In the military, we used to have tabletop exercises to practice things before it happens, to see what you need to do and to fine tune your game plan. That's what they had about COVID. Event 201 held at Johns Hopkins, I think, up in Maryland. Had the CIA involved, the Director of National Intelligence, Fauci, National Institutes of Health, CDC, the big media, everybody there, and sat there and ran a little exercise to see how people would respond if you came up with a virus that they said in the exercise it was a pig virus that was a member of the SARS-CoV-2 family or whatever it was. Well, then that was in October of 2019, by the way. And we all know what happened in March of 2020. That's what they do, man. They sit back and war game and plot and plan on how to keep us fighting with each other and deaf, dumb, and blind, worrying about stuff that don't matter, while they plot and plan World War III, apparently. I don't know. They don't get my consent no more. I don't consent. I ain't voting for them. They can do it without me. You know what I'm going to do instead? Instead of worrying about fighting with my neighbors and watching TV and sending silly memes to people, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure I plant my garden. I still got a little bit of time. My homegirl told me that she know all about that stuff. She said, you got a little bit of time. I'm going to make sure I get my garden planted, because if they start a war, oh, you think food high now? What I'm told, too, since they have stopped this, they have plugged up the Strait of Hormuz, there's no fertilizer going through. There's no diesel prices have risen. So there's farmers in some of the countries that are important to global food production that have not been able to plant anything this year, or won't be able to get the fertilizer to actually make it grow. So right now, we still eating off 2026 stuff and 2025 stuff. Next year, this year's crop ain't going to necessarily be what it should be. See what I'm saying? I ain't worried about none of this old nonsensical stuff that doesn't matter. I'm worried about maybe we should have an alternative food source in the backyard. Maybe you should stock up on a couple of parts, a little bit of things that you need for daily life to keep you sound and keep you together, keep your family straight. That's what I'm starting to think about. And I say starting to think about that. Anybody know me? I know that I stay thinking about that. I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man. Today was just a rambling thing because there's so much going on and I've been so busy. I haven't really just had the time to sit down and just really use any kind of discernment on anything and get any kind of show notes together. But the world is just a big ball of turmoil and confusion right now. And I'm just, who am I? Y'all don't know me from Adam, but you don't have to take anything I say, take at face value. Take it with a grain of salt, because I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But it seemed like to me the smartest thing to do is ignore these politicians, get cool with your family, get cool with your friends and your tribe, the people that think like you and behave like you and uphold the same values that you stand for. Get cool with them, strengthen them bonds, and also reach out to those people around you who may not be exactly like you and strengthen them bonds. Because we right here in Lubbock, Texas, like I say, this island, this little fair, flat city of ours is really an island on the plains. That's why they call us the hub city, like the hub of a wheel. And all this around here, everybody wants to come here. Another way of looking at that is saying that you're an island. If you're on an island, man, everybody got to be helping everybody. Especially if you're on a semi-arid, semi-desert island. I ain't talking about no Gilligan's Island either. This island, Texas. This island, LBK. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, LBK, hopefully we said some things there that get you to thinking, something that was of value to you. We always try to bring something, even when we don't have time to get our thoughts together. But that's all right. This is season 3, episode 139 of the Focus LBK show. And guess what, LBK? We'll catch y'all next week at the same time, same place. All right, peace.